Washington's Republic formally ended, and when the empire began. And it was proclaimed ratified when it was not in fact ratified. And Pendleton of Ohio said, if the southern states have fought against this, then they're all heroes. And he was a congressman from the state of Ohio.
Yeah. But the 14th Amendment basically creates the corporate citizen. Is that?
See, in the Dred Scott decision, when the Roman Catholic Chief Justice Taney delivered his decision, which was a good decision, he said that we were first citizens of our state, and then citizens of the United States.
Right.
And the privileges and immunities of that subordinate and derivative United States citizenship included the Bill of Rights. That means that the Bill of Rights was an absolute limitation on the power of the federal government.
Right.
We had to go to trial with a jury. We could not have any unlawful search and seizure, et cetera, okay? When the 14th Amendment was ratified, it reversed, or was declared ratified, it reversed that. And it made your U.S. citizenship primary. And your state citizenship a privilege of this new U.S. citizenship. And 4 years later, in 1872, with the Slaughterhouse cases, the radical red Republican Supreme Court decreed that this new 14th Amendment citizenship did not include fundamental rights, later said to be the Bill of Rights. And if the Bill of Rights are no longer privileges and immunities of your U.S. citizenship, well, our citizenship is no different than Russian citizenship or any other citizenship, because everything you do is a privilege.
Right. So when you walk in the courtroom and you're waving the Constitution and the judge kind of chuckles at you, he's right.
The judge is right.
He's absolutely right.
The judge has his flag that's trimmed in gold fringe, his federal flag. That's the flag of the commander-in-chief. He has a state flag that's trimmed in gold fringe. That tells you the governor is the commander-in-chief of the state.
And this is written.
It's all written.
This isn't Eric Phelps making this up.
It's all written.
Because I've read this stuff too.
It's in Title 4 of U.S. Code if you want to read about the flag, U.S. flag.
Right.
So it's all there. And the judge knows exactly what he's talking about. We're proceeding here under a form of military rule. The Constitution has no stand here.
Exactly.
And so you're pleading of common law and jury nullification. All this is a joke to us, sir. We will proceed as the way we want to.
And that all started when the 14th Amendment actually reversed.
The 14th Amendment destroyed our status.
Right.
FDR, when he took our gold from us, destroyed the substance. And then with the Erie decision in 1938, that ended all general federal common law. And if there's no federal common law on a federal level, that's telling you there's none on a state level.
Absolutely not. And it also is, now the states have become subordinate to the federal government.
Correct.
Which is, again, a flip-flop, right?
That's right, because see, when the 13 colonies got our liberty after an 8-year war with England, and by the way, King George III was a complete and total pawn of the Jesuits. He protected the Jesuits all throughout England, gave Stonyhurst, or Thomas Weld gave Stonyhurst to the Jesuits, but after we won our independence, those 13 colonies became 13 sovereign nations, independent nations, and then when they ratified the Constitution, that created a federation of sovereign nations for certain limited purposes. So if any country attacked Delaware or Rhode Island, New York would intervene, Pennsylvania would intervene. So it's a wonderful form of government, and it was described by Pelatiah Webster in his great thesis as to our form of government.
And it worked.
Sure, it worked.
Worked for
We became the most powerful nation in the world in a mere 80 years.
Right. It was like overnight. The growth was phenomenal. The production was unbelievable, but now they've reversed it again.
That's right. They've destroyed the middle class,
and
taken the Bible out of public school.
At you and me sometimes like we're nuts. But I've got to say that there's an upside, because now they're looking at you and me and saying, you know, that's starting to make sense, and they're reading a little bit. And if you'll read Eric's book, as I did, it's fantastic. I mean, here it is. It's not, here's what I think, it's, here's what all the paperwork says, here's what history says, here's what everybody is saying and writing down and doing.
And as an aside, I do have a hard time with spelling and some punctuation and a little bit of prose every now and then. And a Jesuit bought a manuscript. An ex-Jesuit had been a Jesuit for 10 years. And he liked the book very much. He says he's been waiting for it for 20 years. And he was kind enough to put in all the corrections that he found in the book, which was nearly 75 corrections. And we got them all corrected, and it's in the perfected volume now. So I'm very thankful to a man who was a Jesuit for 10 years.
Now, along with your book, you also have a CD-ROM that has old books, books you don't find in the library. What are these, and what's the reason for them?
Okay, there are very few books written on the Jesuits that describe their order, how it worked, and their history in the past. You'll look high and low to try to find them, but the ones I have are, I feel, the best after 20 years of research. The first one is Dowling's History of Romanism, which is the greatest history of Romanism from the time of its inception, from Constantine 312 to 1845. The second book is Niccolini's History of the Jesuits, which was an Italian Roman Catholic who got saved, came to know Christ of the Bible, and he became involved in the Italian Revolution. He was driven from Italy when the Pope was brought back to power by Napoleon, and he wrote his history from England as an exile. Another history is R.W. Thompson's Footprints of the Jesuits. He was the only American that ever wrote a history on the Jesuit order, some 500 and so pages. Another history, and it's an extremely hard book to find, it's M.S. Cusacks, the nun from Kenmare. She wrote a book called The Black Pope, and it's nearly impossible to find. I found it in a library. The book was not cataloged yet, and I copied it, and the only other copy that we can find on the internet is in the British Museum, and you cannot check that book out. You must read it there. Another book is The Engineer Corps of Hell, written by Edwin A. Sherman. He was a 33rd degree Freemason, and there were some Freemasons who genuinely thought the Masonic Lodge was against the Jesuit order. This man was one of them, and he reprinted the Secreta Monita. He also reprinted some of the maxims of the order. There's another book written called Popery, Puseyism, and Jesuitism by Luigi de Santis, who was an official censor of the Inquisition in the 1850s. He tells of the Inquisition there in Rome when the Italians opened it up and they found people that had been walled up to die. And they found people buried in dry lime up to their necks and left there to die. It's a book also, it's a book of conversations between the Waldensian, who's Mr. Sweetman, and a few others, and you find it totally intriguing. So all these books total 4,200 pages. You'll find them in addition to the book that I have here. You can download, do whatever you want to.
You got 800 pages in your book?
700.
700. Now you got a lot of pictures too.
I have about 130 pictures. And one of my points in the book is that the Vatican controls all the intelligence agencies. The Vatican controls the CIA, the KGB, the Mossad, the BND of Germany, the British SIS, MI5, MI6. They controlled all of the international intelligence agencies through the Knights of Malta. I have a picture of Donovan, who was the head of the OSS at the time, in the Vatican getting St. Sylvester's Medal from the Pope, which is the highest award the Vatican can give, for a lifetime of secret intelligence services to the Vatican.
Yeah, and you've got a picture.
I've got a picture of it.
And that's in your book.
And it's in my book.
What about some of the organizations? And let me pick on a couple, because there are a few organizations that I believe promote not anti-American, but things that aren't in line with the Constitution. And one of my favorite animals is the Bar Association. Where did that come from? If you have to be a member of the Bar Association to go in the courtroom, in certain instances you can go pro se, but if you're going to go in the courtroom, you have to be a member of the Bar Association if you're going to represent somebody. And if you're a member, then you have all these guidelines. Many of these guidelines are anti-client, who, by the way, is the one that pays the lawyer. Where did this come from? And what's the reason for it? Do you have any input on that?
In my experience, I've discovered that the whole legal system is an outgrowth of the 14th Amendment and the abolition of the English common, or the common law procedure that we have. Yeah. When you have a lawyer, you have declared yourself incompetent, that you cannot defend yourself.
Right.
And the courts are not a place of justice. They're a place of business.
Right.
So if you want justice, the courtroom is not this place to seek it. And so it's